What's up, everybody? Gallon17 here. And I had a thought the other day about Red Dead Redemption 2 and the online aspect of it. And I feel like it still has a lot of potential, and I personally enjoy it. I play with my friends quite often when I can actually get the time. I mean, it's a gorgeous game, and I really, it's one of my top games. Probably top 5 in the past few years. And I just got to thinking about the aspect of the online segment that I've been seeing everybody talk about, is the idea of a rancher role. And I just got to thinking about whether or not it's something that's possible that could be easily slid in. And I think it really could, if the developers would really just take the time and implement it and make sure that the bugs were sorted out and all. Because then it could also go into the aspect of bringing in properties and such. I mean, I don't know about, setting up where John Marston lives or things like that. Or, I mean, maybe even, take up partial residence at the McFarlane Ranch. But, there's plenty of ranches and plenty of plantations throughout Red Dead Redemption that you could either lodge at, I say that with quotation marks, or even possibly own, or even technically, in canon, lease from the owner of the land. And it was just, the more I got to thinking about this, the more I was like, they could really do it. This could really, really be cool. And so there's just a few things I'm going to go over in the aspect, go over a few places that were locations that we could probably buy, and then why I think it could. First, we're going to kick it off at Arisfield, or as we like to call it, the Arisfield Ranch. It's kind of a rundown, abandoned looking house. And if I'm not mistaken, it's actually where the Vanderlyn gang hides out back here in the barn during story missions. And it's here in the southern states. And I mean, it's pretty much set up for a smaller ranch. I don't know about, how much it could really hold. I mean, cattle and all can go over there. And you already have a barn where you can put the goats. And if I'm not mistaken, there should be a chicken coop somewhere right here. But all in all, I mean, it's a location that you could really sell off as, buying dirt cheap, blah, 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 and actually own a ranch here. I mean, there's already so much right here that can be used in the aspects of a legitimate thing. And, it's still close to town and everything. I mean, you could even have, delivery missions, kind of like what we did in Red Dead Redemption. Things I'll go over a little bit later that we can cover. But this is one of the first houses that came to mind, as far as, real quick, cheap dirt potential locations. So let's move on to the next. All right, the next one we have is Dewberry Creek Ranch. It's still here in Lemoyne. It's just a little bit north of the other area that I discussed earlier. And I mean, it's a little bit further away from Rhodes and Saint Denis, but it's a little bit closer to Valentine. Not by much, but I mean, it's kind of right here in the middle of the three. So it's already set up for a stables. It has an area right here for the horses and potentially cattle. It has a house where you can, go inside, change your outfits, maybe potentially even have table meals instead of just a stew pot. You keep the dog here and everything instead of there at the Camp Crips. And I just think, again, it could just be another relatively cheap, smaller ranch. It doesn't even necessarily need to be it could be a step-up ranch or anything, or an intermediate when you only got the cash, just to kind of get things going. So, nothing too much to brag about, but I mean, again, the premise is everything is pretty much right here. So, let's move on to another one. Now, here's one I think everybody was already expecting, was the Emerald Ranch, just here in Hanover. It's kind of in the middle of most of the cities and towns and such and such. So again, another perfect location to where if there are delivery missions or so on to, or selling goods, it's an ideal location. It's already set up perfectly. We have cattle, we have horses, there's goats and sheep, and there's plenty of buildings to where we could just stay in, or at least what we can use as a camp or some sort of rest site. I mean, this is one of the ranches that I believe that you could lease or sign on as a farmhand, kind of like what Marston did in the epilogue. And just for the aspect of internal story, but if the developers or the game designers just want to kind of throw that out the window, just for the sake of, you know, making everybody happy and giving us something, I'm fine with that. But I mean, we have everything that we absolutely need right here. So it's, again, I can't say this enough. Everything is pretty much set up for them as far as locations. We don't really need to add anything too terribly new. Just the aspect of, you know, kind of signing on with it all. And also the perfect thing about if they gave us this ranch here, we already have a fence to sell personal items. We're right here next to the Emerald Station to where we can do bounty hunting and use the train and fast travel. So this is definitely would be like one of the high-end ranches, and if they really wanted, they could open up that saloon, but you know, that's also another thing, you know. Side note is for the moonshiners, you know, I always expected like to be able to actually open up the saloons, or I don't know. Again, things that could potentially be added in, but right now we're just going to focus on the ranch. So let's move on to the next idea. Alright, the next one we have is the house right up here near Brandy Wine Drop. It's the house where Arthur comes across the widow and teaches her how to survive, or Marston if you did in the epilogue. Now, the reason I think this one is because, yet again, it could be one of those where it can be just a small starter range. Like, you know, it can only be like, we'll say like 10 gold or however much like the cheaper stuff can cost. And I think like the restriction you could have here is you could only raise chickens and either goats and or sheep. And you can only have so much of them. Because, you know, it's a little out of the ways. It's certainly going to be a pain to have to, you know, move everything. But again, the idea is areas that can be used as a ranch and as a homestead to begin this process, and something that already pretty much generally fits the build. I mean, right over there is one location where you can just you know, have it for, again, all the type of critters, you know. If anything, even if you don't have chickens, I mean, then it can at least house the house goats and sheep. Small things like that, and maybe even pigs. You know, I don't see a reason why, you know, we couldn't have that kind of stuff. But again, not one that is super shiny, not the one that really comes to mind, but I just think it would, just for the aspect of it's already set up. It has a beautiful view, beautiful location, and it already has the minor stuff for starting animals, because, I mean, the idea of building up the business or like your reputation as a rancher, I think it would just be smart to start off with the smaller animals and work your way up to having full-fledged cattle, steer, and horses and such. So, alright, so let's move on to the next. Is the Valentine Ranch, or the Valentine Auction Yard. So the reason I think this one is not more in the aspect of you owning it, but the idea again of being a farmhand or an add-on. And even though this doesn't necessarily classify as a quote-unquote ranch, you can still do the duties of a ranch. You can still take care of sheep, you can still take care of pigs, you can still take care of cattle, even the aspect of breaking in horses. I think one of these little areas could actually be turned into one if there's not already a spot somewhere over here. We got a barn, we got a chicken coop. You know, the only thing really missing is just the location to technically where you can kind of pop your feet, but outside of that, it's a beautiful, wonderful location, and it's right here next to town, so I mean, you can always still go buy supplies and da-da-da-da. But, you know, we'll kind of see if I think it could work. I personally think it could work. Not too terribly crazy, not too customizable, but you know, it might even be a thing where you could be like, it could be a side mission, you know, not necessarily that you own, but it's one of the missions, your contracts. That could be a thing, is selling your services, you know, you owning one of the other properties, but then you can come and work here as a couple missions, like to come, again, break horses in. And I think that's something that could be used on later on in the, if the whole thing that they do is being able to actually go out and break horses or capture horses or herd horses into an area, and then having the mini game of being able to break the horses in. I mean, I think you could have it to where you could just sell the horses as they are in the wild, but I like the idea of being able to break the horse in and getting a little extra cash out of that. I think it's worth it. Or at least, if anything, gives you the option to do so. So, alright, let's go find another location. Everyone knew that this one was going to be on the list. The McFarland's Ranch. Now, it's just like all the previous locations that I've stated, and this is probably would be one of the top ranches, whether you had to buy your way into here or you had to complete certain tasks to be eligible to buy this. But I mean, we have an area for breaking horses in, we have an area for herding cattle, we have literally everything that we could possibly need. And again, there's a ton of these small buildings that can be acting as quote-unquote lodges for our player. So there's all kinds of like herding missions. There can be, you know, get them across the pasture, minor maintenance fixes around here. You know, it's, I don't think there is a more perfect setup to a ranch than, well, McFarland's Ranch. There might even be like some side quests where we can actually finally have the McFarlands make an appearance. You know, they could be the one to send us on stuff. Actually have like, you know, rancher story missions with some of these bigger ranches if we have some sort of affiliation with them. You know, I just think it would be really, really cool if that was something that we could do, have, or was an option. So, all right, let's go to the next one. The list is right here all the way from the original map in Alston. So what we have here is we're actually at the Ridgewood farm. And I think this is one of the farms that get bonuses from working with horses rather than with cattle, sheep, so on and so forth. Maybe you could get away with chickens or goats over here. But I would think that this one would be predominantly a horse breaking kind of ranch or farm. Because, you know, out west, I mean, it's a lot harder. The soil's not as great for farming, so on and so forth. So, you know, we got the big house being added on as a farmhand. This could be like a sleeping area for you. I don't know. You can even sleep in the barn for all I could care. But yeah, so I mean, you could have that over there. That could be a breaking pen. You can take them in there, like, you know, towards the end of the day, or before missions or what have you. You can put them in the stalls. Shoot, you could even have it to where your own personal horse can stay inside of the barn and get core bonuses. You know, I think that would actually be really cool if they actually open up the barn. Anyway, another one is the rival ranch that you deal with in the epilogue. And I was actually going to put the epilogue ranch, the Peghorn. But as you can see here on the map, it's not here. I actually didn't realize that until I went looking for it, and I was like, where the crap's it at? So went to location, all not there. So unless the devs add it in a patch, an update, or if they actually give us the rancher and they give us that, it is what it is. Anyway, I think this could be one of the ranches that your character could actually own. Just call it like an abandoned one, blah, blah, blah. And you could set up shop here. And I think this could be like one of the higher end ranches that you could own or work for, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's got plenty of space. It's beautiful, beautiful location. Plenty of spots to be able to actually go get like fresh horses and such. It has everything that we need, from the barn to the, you know, smaller stables. I think there's a chicken coop over there, and housing and such, along with tents that you can either, like, we could have an option where we can hire on NPCs to help us with the daily chores. Similar to like what Crips and the Frenchmen do for both of those roles, where they kind of do like the more passive or setup work or what have you. But I think that this could really work. This would be really, really cool to work on. So, some honorable mentions that I'll throw in there. Because I know there's a ton of housing throughout Red Dead. It's a massive map, and I tried finding a bunch of the ones that came off the top of my head that I've been to that I was like, oh, this would be a really cool location. But the Brace and the Grays, both of those locations would also be phenomenal. But again, the only problem being is I could really only see you working as a farmhand instead of actually owning it, like some of the smaller locations that I found. All the same missions can be put there, same activities, blah blah blah, and I think it could all really work. So now that I've gone over a few of the locations that I think could, you know, if anything, be starters, because there's so much space in Red Dead that they could actually add in extra houses. I mean, I know it would kind of mess with the quote-unquote canon of the main game, but even still, this is for fun. So, let me go over why I think this could. So here are my reasons of why I think that it could really work in the aspect of having a rancher role. It's because the mechanics in the game already exist. Everything from being able to raise up a hay bale, to cleaning the horses, moving utilities, you know, like picking up the sacks of grain and everything and moving it to the farms or to the stables and such. I mean, we already have everything from being able to milk cows, pick up manure, feed chickens. You know, these mechanics already exist in the game. So the only aspect of I could see being complicated is just the aspect of turning it into the ability to work on a massive server where you have a ton of other people doing the same thing. But outside of that, I don't really see a reason of why it can't work, or why Red Dead developers would just pass up on the opportunity. I mean, like, look, I mean, being able to do this, as simplistic as it is, I mean, it's there. So why not, you know, take advantage of it actually being there? I mean, as far as story mode, this can get tedious, and I'm sure online people would complain like, oh, this is too much, da 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 da. But, you know, I really, really think it could work. It would be awesome. And again, like this, you know, having NPCs that actually come and, you know, help take care of the cattle, help take care of the horses, make sure everything's good, picking up all the poop, it not being just you. And I think it would be a fun experience, and I know so many people
what would give you that idea?
Are just clamoring for it.
There's a herd of sheep coming down to auction from Emerald Ranch. Folk in town were saying the owner's trying to stamp out every farm from here to Ansburg. Yeah, I know that place.
This mission here is another reason of why I believe that it is completely possible for this game to allow for the rancher role. It's because the mechanic of herding is already here. Being able to, like, you know, gather all the sheep and, you know, put them in a direction and what have you. I mean, this is absolutely perfect. And this is exactly what you would be doing as a rancher. You know, and these are also the kind of missions that you could be having for the rancher. You know, taking sheep to auction, having missions where you can steal sheep from somebody else going to the auction, whether that's a PvP thing, which I would prefer it not be, or it just be, you know, messing around with the in-game competition. You know, either way, I mean, the option is, the mechanics are there, the mission segments are there, and it can work. And then, you know, and again, you know, with it being PvP, just like what John is here trying to help along, you know, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be that much harder for them to actually set the mechanics to where the, you know, other players can help. It's all in the game. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but it is. It just needs a little bit of time, a little bit of refining, and boom. So those are the reasons why I think being a rancher or the rancher role can be done in Red Dead Online. Everything has been set. The table is ready for the food, in a sense. And Rockstar, if you happen to watch this video, like, I love this game. You have done phenomenal with this game. And of course we can nitpick it to high heaven. But you have put out one of the best games ever, in my opinion. And that being said, this game is far from finished in potential. There's so much more you can do with this game. There's so much more that can be done and explored. And we don't have enough Western games. I know they can be slower paced in some sense, but in my opinion, as long as the content is staying continuous, or at least the bugs are kept down, and everything's not made so expensive to where we have to grind the mess out of this like an EA game, like Battlefront 2 when it first came out. And by the end of that game's life cycle, it was one of the best, and they gave up on it right when it was at the peak of being, again, a phenomenal game. There was so much more that could have been done with that. And I believe Red Dead Redemption Online is in that same category. This game is so much fun. I have spent so many hours playing this with my friends. It's such a gorgeous game. Even the online aspect, I'm not as graphic connoisseur as a lot of other gamers are. But this game, even online, is absolutely stunning. So, the mechanics are here. The land sites are here. It really just comes down to whether or not Rockstar can pick up its gun belt, get on its horse, and ride with it. Please don't give up on this game. And everybody, you know, on their Facebook page, on their Instagram page, let them know what we want. Let them know this game doesn't have to be dead. I understand there's a lot of people who've just given up this game outright, even if Rockstar does something at this point. But the fan base, like the real fan base, the hardcore fan base that absolutely love this game, like people like me, will come back. I try and play this regularly, but, you know, there's only so much that can be done, I agree. But there's still a ton of content that I'm trying to figure out myself, and I have a blast when I find out a new mission or a new game mode. I mean, I personally love the survival mode. That's like one of the best things we've gotten since the Moonshiner pack. I know we got the Naturalist, and personally, I thought we would have gotten the Rancher before the Naturalist kind of thing. It just seemed like the logical next step. But in my conclusion, so I don't just keep running in circles, yes, the Rancher role can work. Yes, everything is here. And we're just waiting. So, everybody, thank you. I appreciate you watching this. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Share it if you feel like it's worth sharing. But, you know, let me know whether you agree with me. Hit the like button if this is something that you agree with me. Let's see if we can get this video some traction. You know, if we can make our voices heard loud enough, we might be able to change their minds on anything, which I know they haven't fully given up on content. They've stated that they are going to continue bringing content. So let's just see what they do, you know? Just let them know that we're still here and we are ready to ride.